What's up, guys? It's Janumba here, and I'm joined by Tom, as usual.
Hello.
And today we're joined by a very special guest, Andy. Say hello, Andy.
Hello.
Andy is the king of spice in Dragon Ball Super.
I wouldn't say that.
I would. We just thought we'd get Andy on to ask him a few questions, kind of get to know him a bit better, and get his opinion on Dragon Ball and the upcoming event in Coventry. So just to start with, Andy, so people know a little more about you, could you tell us a little bit about your background in TCGs?
Yeah, sure. So I started playing card games way back when the Pokemon TCG first came out. They had events based in Borders in Leeds, and then moved to another building where I continued to play them. Never really got involved in collecting, but just did it about the games, focused on the metagame. Not that I knew it was called a metagame back then. And always enjoyed attacking the popular decks rather than playing the popular decks. So that's where I started.
Okay. Yeah, that made me feel really old, because I think I started playing Pokemon when I was 4.
Damn.
Yeah, I think I was about 14 or 15, something like that. Young'uns.
Yeah, young enough.
I was going to say, you said Borders in Leeds. I had to do a quick search to see if that was actually what I was thinking it was, and my God. Yeah.
Yeah, so you moved from Pokemon to, was it straight to Dragon Ball? There's obviously quite a gap.
No, I played a few other games in between. So after Pokemon, I moved to Magic the Gathering, and it was Urza Masks standard at the time. If you don't know your background for it, basically the design team made absolutely bonkers cards in Urza's block, and then had to make really boring cards in Mask's block to try and bring the power level back down. And it was just absolutely busted. And it was like one of the most fun experiences I've had, because you just got to play nut stuff. Like, people used to refer to turn 1 as the late game.
Oh my God. So it sounds kind of similar to SS3 days, or Super Shenron Storm.
Yeah, pretty much. After Magic, and this one's kind of relevant to DBS, I was quite heavily involved in the Score DBZ game when that was out.
Okay.
Now, the game itself had some of the worst power creep I've ever seen in a card game. But when the Dragon Ball GT sets for it and the rules shifted, it became this absolutely brilliant but completely broken format where if you could essentially have perfect information in the deck I played, which just meant it was nigh impossible to lose.
Oh, damn.
Very strange.
Then in probably, I think this is where I performed best. I played the WoW TCG for a lot, because I played WoW when that came out.
Yeah.
I seem to remember being in top 32 of nationals for 3 years. Can't remember exactly. But again, I always played bullshit. Sorry, is this PG rated?
No, I say what you want.
Yeah. So essentially, there was a leader, and full props to Tino Casato, I think his name was, for making me want to play the deck. But essentially, it was called Rip and Flip, and basically you rip through the portal this giant monster and make your opponent's leader -50 on life, so you win automatically.
Oh wow!
Oh, damn.
It was like the best example of a pure combo deck in that game. And again, I always preferred to attack a metagame rather than play the metagame, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you look at what's doing well, and you think of ways to directly counter that.
Yeah. Then I got involved in some of the FFG LCGs, so Warhammer Conquest or Warhammer 40k Conquest, whichever it was. A Game of Thrones 2.0 when that launched. Dabbled around in some of the other ones, and then I got into DBS less than a year ago.
Oh, wow.
I think it was when Miraculous Revival was coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I started playing as well.
some of my mates have been playing for ages, and there was some event where there was some good promos given out, and I was like, well, if you pay me in, I'll play whatever deck you put in my hands. And so they put Shenjita in my hands,
Oh god.
and I seem to do quite well.
And it's been a love ever since.
Yeah, well, it wasn't quite love. Like, I never really enjoyed the game too much until this last set, with kind of the addition of proper counterplays and proper instant speed interaction for those used to Magic and so on, because that's how I like playing.
No, definitely. I think the vast majority of the community would agree with you there. Since they've launched all of the set 7 stuff, it's been a lot healthier.
Yeah, like I think that the game is growing, which is like both in the number of people playing, but also it's learning its own rules better. And this is about the time in most card games' lives, because it's about 2-3 years old now.
Yep.
This is about the time when most games either die a death or continue growing, and they've actually done we're going to sort things out and start making strides towards it to continue to grow.
Yeah, you can tell because Bandai have started like responding to the community more and addressing a lot of the issues with things like the limited list and stuff.
Yeah, and that they speak to us. Like just today they told us that there will be an errata to that 4-drop Android 21, so that it does have energy exhaust.
Yeah, exactly.
Which crushed my hopes and dreams.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been very healthy. But yeah, Tom, you got the next question?
Next question is, what is your overall favorite play style, and what do you look for when building a deck of this style? I mean, I guess you kind of covered that going into obviously like you say, with the recent set.
I mean, the main things I like playing are control and combo. Like I'm using terms from Magic here, so I don't know if they really exist in DBS because I haven't been playing that long. But basically, I like control decks where you basically leverage, you use your life as a resource, you leverage like counterplay windows and stuff like that. And I like combo decks that just basically put some nuts thing together and then essentially win the game or lock your opponent out in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Obviously, in that sort of ideology, Andy, quite often you like to play things during your opponent's turn. I think you said that was your favourite thing to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to sound so guilty about it.
Yeah, well, but basically the things I look for in control decks, like reaction and interaction is very important, and you want to do this on your opponent's turn, so that then if you want to swap from being the control to the aggro, you then can leverage a clear board at the beginning of your turn, so that you can then push and then they're already tapped out.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that.
You're trying to dictate the way that they use their energy by doing things on their turn.
Yeah, so like in control mirrors, I will always try and use I'll try and use energy cheaply in their turn to force them to interact then, so that on my turn, if I want to make a bigger play, I can go for it free.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. On the kind of design of card aspect to it, what are your favourite cards in terms of actual game design?
Game design before thematic design.
Yeah, game design. We'll talk about thematic design later, but kind of game design first.
So I suppose I just want to set a few of these things out there. Like, one of the main things I look for in any card is card advantage, and it took me a really long time to understand that DBS is very different from Magic, because when your creatures battle cards match on power level, only your opponent's is killed when you're attacking,
Mm.
and therefore every battle card is an inherent 2-for-1 because it can attack, kill something, and then has to take another card from the opponent's to do it. So therefore, you kind of end up looking for, if you want to maximize card advantage, you almost want to look for 3-for-1s, which is which will bring me on to my favorite card, which is Vegeta the Cruel. And I think it's close between Vegeta the Cruel and Gogeta Resonant Explosion, between which is the best card in existence right now, in my opinion. It's like, as long as you can play it and there's targets, it's a guaranteed 3-for-1. You take something off the board, not necessarily what they just played. You take a card out of their hand, and it's a 15k green Vegeta, which is very useful for Union Fusion and stuff like that. Like it's counterplay, so you get to dump it in their turn and then attack with it or combo with it for more defense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So when you kind of look to use the card at its most valuable, you'd be looking at a time when they've committed something to the board, and you just pop down a cheeky Vegeta and go, no thanks.
Yeah, so like, and this is again one of the things that I'm still learning is like when it's worth countering stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, and a lot of people ask me like, or say, play Denial of Hope, play Preemptive Strike and stuff like that, and I'm just like, but that is a straight 1-for-1. It's a good 1-for-1, but it's a straight 1-for-1. Whereas if I just play something like this that may be slightly more restrictive, I think it's probably better overall and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are in the same boat to you, where they're just, it's because the meta's still relatively fresh with things like the counterplays. People are trying to get the most out of them at the minute, which will take time. Yeah, it'll take time. Okay, so Tom, next question.
I mean, yeah, we've discussed game design, so let's go for the thematic design. What sort of Dragon Ball characters do you love? What sort of cards do you think really fit what sort of character? And yeah, what are your three favorite?
Yeah, so I'm not really going to lie about this. I don't really care too much about thematic feel for cards. Like I never even cared in any of the other games I played. I like the game. That said, with my limited kind of knowledge of the show and everything, I really like the Janemba chain for theme.
Yes.
Yeah.
You there was a reason we were interviewing Andy.
Mostly because it uses the warp and the bottom of the deck as the two kind of alternate realities or whatever that Janemba shifts between. It's very hard to interact with, just like Janemba is in the movie, etc., etc. I just think that's really thematic.
Yeah.
That's
solid reasoning.
The next one, which is probably a little bit off, but I really like it, is a kind wish, because if you take it from Broly's perspective, he has just ended up on a completely barren planet where there's nothing else going on around him, and that is exactly what happens with a kind wish. Everything else goes, and a Broly appears.
Yeah, I like that. Again, it's a really good reason.
And then, like, the final one, which is probably a bit more boring, is like, I really like Gogeta 5, Gogeta 7, and the BR sets, because you've got to match the power level of cards in hand, which again I think is really cool, because not only is it matching power levels, which kind of matches the story, but it's also the fact they've got to be in your hand, which typically represents the fact that anyone who wants to fuse using the dance has to fuck off somewhere else to do it. So they can't be in play or anything like that. They've got to be somewhere safe, which is in your hand.
I like that. I didn't even. Damn, I like that. There's 3 solid reasonings.
I've never considered a kind wish to be like perfectly thematic, but now
me neither. I love that reasoning.
Definitely.
Brilliant.
I mean, I like the card as well. Like, it's just a completely busted card, but I do really like the theme of it just being like a Broly just appears out of nowhere. And like, I really hope in the future one of the things they look to do is do battlegrounds, So in the score TCG or CCG, whatever it was, used to be like, I'll try and put it into Dragon Ball talk.
Yeah.
They used to have global field cards that you could only have one in play, and it affected both players.
Okay.
So, like, there would be Desolate Wasteland or Kami Sanctuary, and it would be things like field. Kami Sanctuary was both players draw an extra card at the start of their turn.
Ooh.
And
Okay.
and if another person played a battleground, then that one would be replaced with the new one,
Yeah,
and so on. And and that added more theme to where you were fighting in a way.
Yeah.
And like that, there was more things in that, but I just really like the idea of being able to say, right, we're not here anymore, we're here, and I've planned to fight you here. So
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
so I've turned what should be a balanced affair into favoring me, and so on.
Well, I mean, the problem that we've got with that is that the community collectively shat itself over altered reality, so we don't want to give them too many field cards.
No,
Yeah.
I do like the idea there.
It's a very, very good idea.
It's just one of those things where I really liked it. One of the other areas I'd really like them to explore is, again, something from the score CCG, which is masteries.
Oh, okay.
So in the score CCG, it had, I'm just trying to think, I think it had 6 colors and then colorless. And you could have a mastery for each one that basically said, you declare it when you reveal your leader, and it says you can only play, say, blue cards or colorless cards in your deck whilst this mastery's up, but has some effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And basically, by revealing it, it basically gives your opponent more information. You are a mono blue deck as such. But it gives you or your cards or something about your things another benefit.
Okay.
And again, it's a way of specializing. It's a way of not changing the fundamental dynamics of the game, but adding more to them.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. Yeah, because like most from the sounds of the mastery, like some leaders have similar effects, but obviously that's locked to that leader card.
Yeah. So imagine in like a good example of something like this would, like, let's take a blue mastery. It'd say you can only have blue cards in your deck. No other colors, must be uniquely blue. However, whenever one of your blue cards untaps an energy, untap an additional energy.
Yeah. So like it's a restriction, obviously, with its benefits, but it's not. Yeah, I like that. That would be.
And I think they're testing the waters with that a little bit with the Infinite Saiyan rares.
Yeah.
I think you've got a good point there. Actually, if you look at the Android 17 and 18 leader, if that was restricted to like only Android cards, that would be quite a good example, because that not only does it discount them, but it also gives them all 5k.
Precisely, that's the sort of thing that you could detach from a leader.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
The Android mastery, you can only contain cards that have the Android subtype in your deck.
Yeah.
But your androids get a bonus.
Exactly.
And then you're not restricted to just that leader.
Exactly. Yeah. So if it wasn't looked at, that'd be so. All right, we need to design this.
Bandai, listen. This is good shit.
That would be fun. Yeah, and the battlegrounds both would be really fun. Like just for like extra game modes, we could do it locals. And to be honest,
there's a lot of scope for battlefields as well, because you've got all the different areas that they've fought in.
So much you could do.
Yeah.
And as I say, the reason I like these two as possible additions is they don't you don't need to change the way the rest of the game works, because the rest of the game works fine. These just add static effects on top of things that already exist.
Yeah, and the restriction on the cards themselves, or the masteries, or the field cards would kind of compensate for the fact that the decks might be slightly lower in power. Sorry, the fact that they're slightly lower power level because they're restricted would be compensated by the fact that the power or the ability could be like a little bit stronger.
Yeah, and it's the sort of thing I can really imagine happening once we finish this, whatever the multicolor
Unity
nonsense
block
set's called.
business,
Yeah. Well, once the Unity block's done, I can see them saying, right, we're now going to do the Mastery block, which is focus on one color.
Yeah.
And then you have to make a really tough choice between, do you play with all the really high-powered cards you had, the dual color, but you can get something more back by whatever it is.
Yeah. So it's like, do you want to go for like raw strength, or do you want to go for like a value game?
Precisely.
Well, I'll get onto my Bandai contacts when we're finished. And
oh yeah, of course, yes.
Why'd you think I always get your number?
Oh, God.
Yeah. So moving sort of away from theory and moving more to actual meta games. Obviously, there's a big commentary event coming up in just under 2 weeks. I know that yourself is going, and so am I, and I know a lot of other people that we play with are going. What do you expect to see there, and what do you expect to do well?
Okay, so I think, like, on what I expect to see there, you got to take two things into account: is not all what's strong, but also card availability. And a lot of people are talking about the Draft Box 4 that's just come out, and any new decks that come from that may not, even though they should be in the meta game, may not be because of the card availability. So, like, I've got kind of 5 decks that I kind of expect somewhere. And then there's all the other stuff. So the ones I expect to see, in no particular order, I expect to see Universe 6, whether that's in a Broly shell or a Cabba shell. I think those are the 2 best ones. Everyone loves U6 for some reason. But it's also a great aggro deck, and it is kind of the speed of the format. Like, if you can't survive U6's turn 2 or 3 whenever they go for their like many evolves, that's your, I have to be able to defend this, kind of like what Storm used to be. You had to be able to defend the Storm turn, and then if you survived that, you could probably do okay.
Definitely. I think the reason that people like U6 is, first of all, because Kefla is Bay, and second of all, it's quite reminiscent of Apes deck, the Apes deck from way back when.
Well, it's funny you say that, because Apes is on my list.
I was going to say, you were saying about the draft box decks that are coming back. Apes is definitely going to be up there, I reckon.
Yeah, like, and this I think is limited by availability. So for Apes, it's relatively new, as in it's not been in many major tournaments, but it's got a red-yellow variant that uses the King Vegeta to evolve on top of the Arrival card, and basically play a red-yellow value game. Or there's this kind of newer deck that I think was only really shown this weekend, which is a blue-yellow Apes deck that basically just uses things like Zeno button to untap and play the new Bardock defensively, and essentially just plays a blue-yellow counterplay game.
Oh, okay.
Sounds pretty spicy.
I think both of those would be more prevalent if they if the cards were available freely. And it may be that they become more available and people just have them and we don't know about them, but I think that's definitely should be on people's radar. I think the biggest deck everyone should be aware of is Ramp, because just as U6 is the kind of early turn kill, Ramp is almost the inevitability, where if you can't interact with them and they just get to go double objection Whis into Kaioken plus Gogeta 7 plus Victory Strike in a single turn, then like have fun with that, guys.
Yeah. No, I think Ramp is definitely going to have a strong showing. It's a lot better tested than things like the Apes, and
it's also cheap.
Yeah,
like outside of
excluding
Victory
Victory
Strike,
Strike.
all the cards have been out for ages, and
Yeah.
they're readily accessible.
Definitely, unless you're a Magpie, then you're a bit out of luck. But the deck's
Yeah,
not
but
expensive.
I mean, I even checked today. You can get draft box for Kaioken Gokus for less than a tenner, so that's not
Wow. So if you're on a budget, guys,
the other deck, which again is inevitability, is Janemba,
of course.
which will just be. It is what it is. It's a necessary part of the metagame because, again, it's inevitability. It will win if you don't do something about it.
Yeah.
And they've pushed its limits of interaction to the maximum in the kind of Guy Nember versions.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it's still heavily like it's there. It's present, and if you don't have something to stop it, then you're, whether that's going faster or going bigger or whatever, then it's a losing situation.
Yeah, I think the way to address in inverted commas address Janemba is you either speed out like a 5-drop and looking at the 5-drop Gogeta, or you go really wide and force them to tap out during their turn, and then kind of rush them down, because Janemba doesn't really, once Janemba gets on the back foot on the board, it's really hard for it to come back. But yeah,
and I mean the last deck that I have on here is kind of what I've been playing forever, which I just affectionately called red green whatever, because it pretty much is pick all the red green cards that are good and just jam them together in some leader that draws cards, and that's a pretty good place to be.
Definitely. Well, I've discussed the importance of hand advantage like time and time again, and I find a lot of the red green cards, particularly with the pan leader, you will at most points have a hand size of kind of 6 or 7, even if you've gone for a big turn.
Yeah, like one of the things you've got to balance card advantage with also energy advantage, because if you're maximizing all your energy every turn, whereas your opponent isn't, then you're getting more value than they are out of the limiting resource.
Yeah.
So it's why when we play, I will use all my energy, but I'll use it all in your turn, one way or another. And then I'll just do it again and again and keep going that way.
I think that's a really interesting viewpoint, because the way that you play, you almost see your opponent's turn as like an extension of your own.
Well, I see my opponent's turn as my turn.
What's yours is mine.
My turn is an extension of theirs.
Yeah, no, that's you've definitely got. I think you made some very good points about the meta. The tournament meta is going to be really focused around those, and then you'll maybe have like a sprinkling of things like Tower and sort of other decks that will pop up.
Be aware of this new Demigra Storm deck that's getting talked about a lot, that use it. I think it's the draft box Demigra, or is it the I think it's the Magnificent Collection, so that might not be relevant. But yeah, like there's people who are coming just to play in a big Dragon Ball tournament will just bring whatever their pet deck is.
Yep.
So you've got to at least know the game. But you'll have people turn up with Crit Nember, Gogeta BR, anything like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe Clash Goku is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
You'll see all sorts of stuff like this. But if you want to fight the meta game, I think those are the 5 I mentioned are kind of the main things to watch out for.
Yeah.
As for what'll do well, I think Ramp is going to be rampant. Let's put it that way. So I think if you're going for if you assume that's going to be the most played deck in the room, decks that can beat that are going to do well, which is going to be your fast decks.
Yeah.
And then if you can have a deck that can prey on the fast decks, but also have decent game versus them, those will be the ones that top.
So it's a deck that can either weather the storm, pardon the pun, and also control the way out of ramp.
Yeah. So it's like if you like, and this brings us neatly onto stuff I've been testing with. So to the shock of no one, I've been playing red green control pan, and basically that it has a good matchup in my experience against things like U6 and even Janemba. I imagine it'll probably have a good matchup versus apes. Because I barely attack on their turn, and then they're going to be struggling as when they're actually going to combo their apes out, etc. But it just dies dead in the water to ramp. Like I just cannot do anything against it. So if I could somehow tweak that to have it, probably give up some percentage points against the aggro decks, but if it could average up its game versus ramp, then overall I think it'll do well. Again, this is a Magic term. It's the Jund of the format, which is just trying to eke the most value out of all of its cards at all times. So I reckon that, like, if you should have a 50-50 matchup against everything in the room, and it comes down to play. Right now, it does not have a 50-50 matchup versus ramp. It is so much lower.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Right, well...
Just need to find a way to sort that, really.
Yeah, I suppose that brings us on to our final question. How do you think you'll do at Coventry?
Badly. Let's be honest. This is my first. Like, I missed the previous two big events in the UK for various family reasons and stuff. This is my first big event. I normally scrub out hard at big events. I have put a lot of work in, but at the same point, I'm not going to win. I'm going to have fun. And if winning happens, so be it. Like, one of the things I've said to myself is, if I'm going to go down for the day, and if for some reason I have to figure out what to do about getting down the next day, I'll worry about that as a nice problem when it comes to it.
Yeah. Worry about the success if it happens. I like that.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do with everything else in life. Why not here?
Yes. Not many people will know, but me and Andy have been doing some quite extensive testing kind of over the past few weeks, and I believe that the record against you is I'm 1 and you're like is it 12 or 13?
Probably, but bear in mind I've played some really shit decks as well.
Yeah, it's always fun coming up against your hard counters 6 times in a row, but
6 different hard counters.
Yeah, 6 different hard counters. Yeah, the reason that I've referred to you as the King of Spice is that typically when you build a deck, you don't do it in the traditional way. So a lot of people will look at kind of the big card that they have, and they'll think, right, well, I want to win with this card. How do I achieve this? But you look at it from a different viewpoint. I think, as you've said repeatedly, kind of you look to get value out of cards. I just think that's a really interesting philosophy to have when deck building.
So here's something from Magic. A control deck in Magic will often have maybe 1 or 2 win conditions, and everything else is just board control and card draw to get to them.
Yeah.
And like when Arrival first appeared, I was like, okay, this is the beginning of counter spells.
Yeah.
And then, well, Preemptive Strike was the first one, and I was like, okay, it's starting. Then we got Arrival. Now we've got the full counterplay suite, and I think they so what I basically think about is I visualize kind of how I'm going to win. So on that winning turn, I am like in my pan deck, I'm basically saying, right, I've ground down their board so that they've had to push their hand to the max to try and kill me. And now I'm just going to try. Now I'm going to go, right, on my turn, it's probably going to be 6 to 8 energy. I may not even have awoken at this point, and then I'm just going to like drop down a Kaioken. Remember, it has deflect, so it doesn't get hit by cross deadly poison. And then take any relevant cards and then just swing. And up until that point, it's going to be chip damage rather than that. And like maybe not even do like I want to do 2 life to them so that I can kill them in that Kaioken turn, because I want to deny them card advantage throughout.
Yeah. I think another thing you've got to remember is that Janemba just needs a blue card to negate an attack.
Yes, I always forget that one.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you want to mention what you're doing in kind of the few weeks before and after Coventry. I think it's up to you.
As in life-wise?
As in life-wise, as in those 4-letter words.
Okay, yeah, sure. So this is a bit about me that's not attached to DBS, although maybe it will be at some point. I've written a book. It's called Life is a 4-letter Word, shock horror, and it's coming out next year. It's mental health survival guide for professionals, based off my own experience. I talk you through what it's like, or what it was like for me going through being an accountant, training in professional practice, how I was driven to an almost end, and how I came back from it, and what I think about now.
Well, I'm very glad you came back from it, Andy, and I'm sure Tom is too.
I am.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on, Andy. It's been really nice to kind of get your insight on the meta and the card game as a whole.
Yeah, like as I said, I'm new to this game, so I wouldn't necessarily take anything I say as like gospel, but this is just what I feel going into Coventry and what I'm prepared for.
Yeah,
I just really wish. Oh, carry on.
I mean, you've got like a solid background in trading card games, obviously. So if anything's knowledgeable, it's definitely going to be coming from somebody like you.
And now what I'm looking for is a way for a red leader to kill a green 7-drop, so I can replace the SS3 Scramble secret rare with the Broly secret.
Well, I
can't find it yet.
You might struggle there, Andy, because they've both got ultimate.
Yeah, well, I'd only have the Broly one because I want to use the Goku Black Rose to put in the 7-drop Zamasu, then kill it to play the SCR.
Oh my lord!
You can do it in green, but I want a red leader so that I can keep playing Double Shot Vegeta and Son Gohan the Avenger. All my favourite cards.
I think I might vomit. Right, I think that's a really good point to end, actually. Yeah, if you know any way for Andy to achieve that, then feel free to leave a comment and let us know, and we'll pass it on.
Or don't, obviously, because Johnny won't be happy having that happen a few times.
No, thanks. Yeah, if you're around at Coventry, make sure to see. You won't see me. You've never seen me. To say hello. Me and Andy will be around. Tom, are you off to Coventry? I don't think I've asked you.
I am not. I am working that weekend.
Well, aren't you just the worst person I've ever met?
There's potential.
There's potential. That could be the worst.
I can say this now. Like, I'll just so that people recognise me. I'll wear my Disney Lied to Us T-shirt.
Cute.
Which promotes the book because that is the beginning of chapter 9.
Excellent. Right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap this up there. I've been Janemba. He's been Tom.
Woo!
And this has been Andy.
Thanks.
And yeah, we'll catch you next time. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.